Welcome to Cradle and All, a podcast hosted by sisters Renita and Christine to educate, inspire, and connect with other mothers. Every other week, listen as we discuss topics related to pregnancy, raising children, and balancing motherhood with other aspects of womanhood. Whether you're relaxing, juggling tasks, or even breast pumping, join us as we figure it out together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cradle and All. This is Christine.
Hey, and it's Renita. Welcome back.
Welcome back. We are talking today all about postpartum moods. And I'm going to volley this one over to Renita because as a physician, I know that this is something that she sees in her office and that she has prioritized just the health and the mental and physical health. But today we're talking about the mental health of her patients. So I'm going to volley this over to her to get us started with our topic today.
This is such an important topic and one that's really important to me. I get to see a lot of women soon after they deliver their babies and see that there are so many different emotions and feelings that can come along with having a baby. And there can range from happy to sad to just confused. And I personally have had quite an experience with both of my kiddos with a range of emotions. So I just wanted to talk about this today, to have an open space where we can all kind of talk about the realities of having a baby, the good and the bad. Now, for me, it all kind of started when I had my firstborn, Jackson, because I remember everyone saying, oh my gosh, when you have a baby, you're just going to fall in love. It's going to be love at first sight. And it was not love at first sight for me. I mean, I love him so much, but it was almost like, hi, nice to meet you.
Jackson.
No, I mean, not like that, but it was just like, nice to meet you. I have to get to know you. And it was like,
that's real.
It was interesting seeing him and being like, wow, this is what you look like, and getting to know what he does. And I didn't feel like love at first sight, that feeling that I thought I was supposed to feel. And so I think
I didn't either, though. I mean, honestly, love at first, that sounds very harsh to say you didn't feel love at first sight. I think that there is a inherent love because this child just came out of you. But it's like, it's almost a shock that you experience of like, wow, oh my gosh, like I have to do this thing that I just don't know what I'm about to do.
No, I think you saying shock was kind of what it is. And not shock that like, wow, I have a baby, but it was like reality setting in and I am getting to know this person that I don't know. I'm getting to know him and getting to know myself as a mother. And so those feelings of realizing it's not like what they told me it was going to be like was confusing. And I think that was one of the first new feelings and emotions I had was getting to know Jackson and realizing that it's not just like, okay, I love you and I'm going to be the best mom ever, but it's figuring out what does life as a mom look like?
Yeah, that is, I think, why, in addition, why the changes happen maybe with your emotions. In addition to the hormones that are causing you to have changes, it's also that realization of, wow, like I'm doing this. Like I'm a mom now. My whole life is different. I can't sleep. And all the flood of emotions that come with that. And for me, I felt like I kind of naturally and comfortably took to the role of mommy with Dallas. I just felt so joyful about being his mom. And also he looked a lot like me. I looked at him and I was like, oh my gosh, I see myself in you. You're this little chocolate drop baby. And I felt like, oh yeah, you're my son. You know, it's interesting you say that, Renita, about like being shocked. Like, oh my gosh, now you see this person you've been dreaming about. What does he look like? And you see him, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, we gonna make this happen.
Yes.
But that also, like, it's just so many things that your mind is shifting and changing and adjusting. And the mood swings that come with that can be so severe. So like I said, I experienced a lot of joy and I felt like a natural ease to being Dallas's mom. But that was different with Dakota. When he came out, it was a totally awesome experience, but he had to have surgery actually within the first couple of months. And some of the things that we were experiencing with him, the sleeplessness and just that my husband and I actually like kind of bickering a bit more also made it like a compounding and causing me to have even more mood fluctuations. So,
Yeah. Now, I think back to both of the kids, and I can identify different types of feelings that I had along the way. Now, one of them was that shock that I mentioned, but also too, building my confidence as a mom. I think I had a lot of doubt in the beginning because I was like, am I doing this right? And I would be asking my mom, what do you think? Do you think I should be doing it this way? Or like looking for advice from others. And that doubt eventually got less with time. I still have doubts from time to time, but that was a feeling that I had in the beginning, and then starting to question myself if other moms also had doubt about things in my decision making, or it could be anything, like anything I made about his everyday decisions or what I chose to put him in to go to sleep. It could be the littlest of things. Did you ever have doubts yourself?
Oh yeah, of course I did. I mean, like you said, I still have a lot of doubts, or I would call them more like wonderings, wondering if I'm doing this right, wondering if, if I'm making the right choices for him. But as far as doubts and advice, I had a little bit, I think I had a confidence about myself in listening to the kid. I was like, I'm going to listen to him and take his cues and really tune in to see what my child wants. I'm the type of person, I've always been this way. I'm just going to kind of do it and see how it goes and go for it and kind of trust myself. But for me, the feelings of anxiety, I mean, honestly, what was even more prevalent than doubt was anxiety, like just random negative thoughts that would just float into my head that still happen. Like, and I really do feel like it's because of being a mom. I feel like anxiety is a natural human reaction and response to life, but it just really ticked up after being a mom. The anxiety of things, and really was like connected to worrying that something bad was going to happen. Like something is going to go wrong. He's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get hurt. And just these thoughts of somebody getting hurt, and these specific examples would flow into my mind. And like that for me was more of what has been a mood shift, or like a emotion shift that is as a result of being a mom that I never really experienced before.
No, I feel the same way at times too. I know with Jackson, when I first had him, I had this strange fear of being too close to the steps with him. Like I walk down the steps every day because I have a 2-story house, but for some reason, having him in my arms on the steps, I was afraid that I may trip and fall and he would fall down the stairs. I don't know why I had that feeling.
Oh my
so
gosh.
It's almost like, those
too.
extra worries. Yeah.
I had the same exact worry. And it's so funny that we had the same. I'd worry like I'm too close to the banister. We had like an overlook where you can look over the balcony of the inside of the home down to the 2nd story. And I'd always be like, he can fall over. I'm so glad that feeling has quelled. I don't feel that much anxiety anymore with holding the kids over the near the banister. But like for some reason that has always been a fear ever since I had kids. I literally had to talk to my therapist about it and like unpack it to figure out like why do I have that specific anxiety about my child.
That's so true. I think also too, being a mom for me has brought along a lot of worries in ways that I didn't before because of unknowns. Like as you prepare to have a baby, you think about each month of pregnancy. But then for me, once I had the babies, it was like, what are their milestones? And I started to have these worries, particularly with Jackson in the beginning of like, when's he going to smile? When's he going to walk? And just like wondering, is everything going to be okay? But I think some of that is the unknowns that come along with being a new parent and never having gone through this before. Would you say?
Right. Yeah, definitely those reasons. And also just wanting your child to be safe, wanting your child to be okay at all times. And for me, I feel like that's where it comes from. It's like, I want to make sure they're okay. And if anything can threaten that, even a balcony railing, I'm going to freak out. So, and the freaking out, really, the sad thing is the freaking out doesn't change anything. The balcony railing's still there. The world is still full of dangers and still full of good things. And so those anxieties, like really important to find ways to manage that anxiety because life is going to still continue to be what it is. But no, I do think that the reason it is like, in addition to what you said, Renita, is because of just wanting to keep them safe at all times.
No, I completely agree. So we talked a little bit about doubt, and one of the things we said is just getting used to being a mom. When do you feel like you truly hit your stride at feeling comfortable as a mom? Was it with Dallas? Was it with Dakota? Are you still figuring it out? Like, what do you think?
No, I definitely hit my stride. I feel so comfortable. I love being a mom so much. I mean, I really do. And I feel like one of the greatest feelings that I get every single day is a feeling of joy when I get to spend time with my kids after work is over. Like, I always get so happy when I get to put work away. Since I work from home, I could step out of my office. I can go into the family area. I can start preparing dinner and spend time with them. And I would just get so happy because, for one, kids are just so joyful and carefree that it's contagious. Like, we put on the Alexa, we dance, we sing. And so, I mean, we really do. Like, our home is such a joyful place with the kids. We're all crawling around on the floor. We're jumping. We're just having fun, being very present. And I think that is one thing I've really tried to be, is present. And it's actually, I'm getting away from that. Sadly, I've realized I'm getting a little bit away from the present feeling, but
it's just hard.
Is like, just because there's so many other competing priorities. But so I think I really do my stride. I think I hit it with Dallas because I really just wanted to enjoy him when we have moments together, because like we said earlier, they grow so quickly that I want to really soak in the moment of being in that age, in that moment of bedtime and play and all those things, just really enjoying it.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I think for me, as I said in the beginning, I was like, am I doing this right? What's happening? But one of the times that I felt like, gosh, I think I got this. I think I'm going to be okay was when I think Mom came over to watch Jackson in the first early weeks of him being born. And he had some kind of cry, and I was like, oh no, he's hungry. This is what he needs, and that's what he needs. And then I realized, oh wow, I recognize his cries. I know what he needs. Like, it was my first time feeling like, okay, I've really got this. I recognize that this is a different cry than what he usually does. This is what he's got going on. And I could tell Mom, and she's like, okay. And I was like, I know my own baby. Like, I've got this. I don't need to worry about what other people say or look for what other people tell me I need to do. I've got this. And I think I try to carry that on now with Russell, and Jackson is a toddler, because of course I've never had a toddler before. I try to carry that on to make sure that at the end of the day, do not doubt what you have going on inside of you, because these are your children. You've got this.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true, Rita. Like, you do have it. Everyone is, I mean, I think we always have to fight every day to combat and really to be in control of our emotions and not let them control us. And so ultimately, our kids, we do know them better than anything else, and we want what's best for them more than anyone else. As an educator, I remember, like, I used to work in Title I schools with children who've experienced like a lot of difficult home lives. But even in those situations, I would always say, like, the mom and dad, like, they know what's best for their kids. They know what their kids want, and they want what's best for their kids. No matter what they're going through, they still want the same things that my mom wanted for me, the same things that I want for my kids. And so, yeah, mom and dad know the cries. Like, who cares if the kid's gone to daycare for 8 hours a day? Like, you might spend 2 solid hours with that child, but even in those 2 hours, you have the magic touch. You have the elixir. Yes. You have, like, everything that child needs lives in you. And so I'm so glad that you realized that, like, yeah, you do know what he wants. And I think that's really a North Star to live by when you're feeling those feelings of anxiety and depression and maybe some stress. It's like around motherhood. It's like, you know what? I know what my kid needs. I got this. Like, that's my child. I made him or her.
Yeah.
I know what he wants, know what he needs.
Now, I definitely said with Jackson, having that experience made me say, okay, I've got this, nothing to be worried about. But it is going to be very important to point out to those out there, when I had Russell and he was in the NICU, that doubt came right on back. So for any people out there who had babies in the NICU or had any complications or have had time away from baby if they were hospitalized for anything like that, it can definitely be tough, because I had to leave him in the hospital when I left, and then leave every day while he stayed behind with the NICU staff and the nurses. And so I oftentimes, again, had doubt thinking, am I making the right decisions? I need to listen to what the doctors or the nurses say. Like, am I doing the right things? And I had to, again, remind myself, like, you have another child. You've done this before with Jackson. Just because Russell's in the NICU doesn't mean that, your voice doesn't matter. There were times that I, had to speak up and, exert my authority as a mom, not in a way that I didn't trust them, but just to, do the things I felt were important as mom. But there were times that I had doubt because I was like, am I supposed to do this? Am I allowed to do this? Would it affect his care? And so those doubts can definitely be there in those moments too. So I want to acknowledge that for those out there who may have had that also.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk about like doubts you had with like decision making in that instance. I mean, that is a very unique instance because your child is brand new and he's not in your care for, an extended amount of time, and other people are his caregivers essentially. So you do kind of have this like fine line that you're trying to walk on.
Yeah.
But what I'm making a connection to is I've always felt like motherhood is something that I'm very confident in, that I don't, that I tend to be more confident in motherhood than I am in other parts of my life. And my emotion is more fluctuating in those other parts, not in motherhood. But I feel like my moods fluctuate like professionally and with relationships as a result of motherhood. And that's the area where I need to have a little more balance and control in those areas of my emotions, not with being a mom. Because, and for example, like today even, I was feeling so burnt out at work and just like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to work. I literally would tell my husband, like, I don't want to work anymore. Like, I'm done. I just want to go lay down and like watch a Netflix show. And I just feel so emotional sometimes when it comes to work. Highs, lows, sad, happy, and everything in between. And I feel like it's because like I did not get a full night of sleep last night with my kids. We had to get up super early because the kids got up early, and Dakota's not sleeping at school. So I'm worried and stressed out about that. And it's filtering into other parts of my life. Honestly, I feel like my other parts of my life are being affected by
so interesting.
being a mom. And with the kids, I really try to be level-headed and like even keeled. But in the other parts of my life, my emotions are spiking and peaking, and I'm okay with that. So do you find that like other parts of your life are affected, your moods are affected by motherhood, even though it's not like a direct experience?
That is so opposite for me. Oh my gosh. So this is how it's like for me, and what it was like for me, obviously, in the beginning. But, going into the field of medicine, you are on this train that takes you through your 20s and early 30s. And so I have been on this path of studying and taking boards and preparing for so long, and I'm like finally in my stride of where I want to be in my career. So I've got this. I love what I do. There's rarely anything that gets me down about it, and I know what to expect. So it was so different having the kids because this is like new for me. I don't know what to expect. I'm still figuring it out. And it's like my comfort is in my work, which has, been my whole life. And so in the beginning, I think a lot of my emotions were all over the place because I was figuring out this new normal for me. And then also trying to figure out how to be the best that I am at my job while also doing this new normal. And I'm so used to feeling like I'm at the best at what I do, but then feeling like, wait, am I that way as a mom? Fast forward now to a mom who has almost a 4-year-old. I think that I'm feeling my stride as a mother and realizing the importance and value of being away from work and having a distinct time away from work and having that time with my kids and my family. And so before, there would be nothing that kept me away from work. I'd be working over the weekends and doing all this stuff 100% about work. And now I'm like, okay, I need to turn this off and focus on my family and being okay with that. So I think that opposite of you in that in the beginning, it was a rocky road emotionally. And now I'm trying to find that balance that's going to make me happy in both realms.
Wow. That is so funny. We're like totally at opposite sides of the coin here when it comes to that, because Like my family, I think, yeah, I totally can see that with you because I know you, we grew up together and all that. So I see work is something that you totally have invested in because you've been with one thing forever. Whereas I'm like on my fifth job in my adult life, maybe even more, way more than that, I'm sure. And even career changing. I don't teach anymore, but I'm still like, so yeah, for me, it's like my constant is my family. And that's what I feel is I'm more in control of. Even when things are coming at me, the kid threw up, pooped, blowout, tantrums, I still feel like I'm more in control and emotionally in control in that world.
Yeah. One area that I'm still figuring out is not the newborn phase of like, routines of sleep and wake and tummy time, but I'm figuring out my balance of being a mom with a toddler who like has different kind of needs and being being a working mom. So that guilt and those doubt emotions creep in when I'm like, goodness, I'm home on the weekends and normally I'd be reading this journal article or being on call or something like that. And now I'm like, I need to shift my energy from being 100% hands-on, going outside and playing, not worrying about anything with work. And that's so different than what I had been doing before. So sometimes I do get a lot of guilt to be like, I need to put him in more activities. I need to be more of a hands-on mom, and realizing that may look different for everybody, but I feel a lot of pressure to compare myself to other moms. Do you ever feel like you're comparing yourself with other moms or questioning yourself based on that?
Well, I don't think I do that. I mean, I'm really not one to, I mean, of course, comparing is natural. We totally compare. I mean, I think I even compare our kids because they're so close in age.
Yeah.
Dakota's doing this. Is Russell doing that? Jackson's doing this. Is Dallas doing that? Oh, we need to get him in this class, So totally do that. But as far as I want to actually back it up to talk about mom guilt, because I think that's really what we're talking about here. Like that is such a term that moms hear a lot of. I think this goes, this is a triggering term for me because it's one where it's like, why do we have to coin this thing as guilt? I think that mothers and women tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves societally to look a certain way, be a certain way, and have a certain image of ourselves. And social media does not help. And, so this whole mom guilt terminology of feeling guilty for not doing something, this arbitrary proficiency line that continues to move every time you get close to it, it gets even higher. And so I really don't like the term mom guilt because I feel like it's just another way of shaming women for not being like these pristine images of perfection. Like we don't have to
be. That's true. But it's still a real feeling though. Like I definitely had moments of guilt and still at times. I remember dating back to like when it came to nursing. That was my first feelings of guilt when I felt like I wasn't doing enough. So, but I agree. I think some of it is based on expectations that are put on us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. I mean, I also have felt guilt, and I spoke about this, about the guilt of breastfeeding and not being able to produce enough milk for him and just wanting to provide him with more than I could give. But as far as like the guilt of just things that I'm not doing as a mom, I don't term it as guilt. I mean, there are certainly things that I want to do that I'm not doing. I want to have my kids in more activities right now. I want to take them to the library more, but I try not to feel guilty if I don't do it. I try to just say, okay, we'll go next weekend or we're going to do something else instead. So, that term guilt is interesting to me because I think it implies negativity about what a mom should be doing. I think we're all doing the best that we can. Like every mom is doing the best that she can within the parameters of what she's capable of doing at that time. And I know that's true for you, and I know it's true for me.
I think you're right in that certain things can sometimes trigger a feeling of, maybe I should be doing a little bit of this, but just trying to get through those emotions. And we're like, you know what? I'm doing the best that I can. It's easy for me to look on social media and see people, especially during the pandemic, people putting together whole itineraries for their children when they were out of school and out of daycare. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do for my kids. But then also reeling it back in and realizing what's realistic for my family and what are the needs of my family. So this really brings me to a point that I want to talk about what we can do when we have these emotions or these feelings that are maybe negative or not so great, how you get through it. Like, you seem like you're doing way better than me when it comes to guilt. So like, what advice do you have for me when I feel guilty or feel like I need?
I actually am thinking, as we're talking, I'm thinking more about these guilt feelings. For me, it's things that I want to do for them that I feel like I'm not doing well enough, like with food, for example, with my kids. I want to prepare homemade meals and I want them to have fresh, clean eating. I mean, I think back to like with my first child, I'm like, we're not going to watch TV ever. He's never going to watch screen time until he's 13, and he's never going to go fast food. And now he's been, I think, at every fast food fast food restaurant.
Jackson can recite a whole monologue of one of his favorite movies. So clearly we get screen time in.
But those things do bring me guilt, because I'm like, oh my God, where did I go wrong? I had these grand visions of like this natural kid that would be barefoot and like eating vegetables only. And now we're eating tater tots and chicken nuggets. So that does make me feel like, gosh, I really do want him to be healthy. And like, what if, I think another part of it is like the what if spiral in your mind of like, okay, if we don't do this, like, what if this happens, or what if? So, I mean, yeah, I'm doing well, but it still happens. I mean, it certainly still creeps up like, oh my God, I didn't want to do this. We're doing it and we're just going to go with it. We're just going to go with it. I'm just going to see what happens.
Well, one of the things that centers me when I feel like I'm not in a place of the most confidence, or I'm just worried about what's going on with guilt issues, I feel like Bryson, having him to center me on the priorities of our family are really helpful. Like you bringing up the food. There are many times that I'm like, gosh, I wish Jackson was not eating another peanut butter jelly sandwich. Like, he loves those things. Is he going to turn into a peanut butter sandwich? But then, Bryson and I talk about what we can do to make sure that he's getting a wholesome nutrition, and certain times of the week he's always eating a home cooked meal, and it's only gonna be a certain time that we give him like pizza or chicken nuggets. So we talk about what's important for us, and it's okay to sometimes have those moments of pizza or chicken nuggets, but most of the time it's going to be these kind of meals. And then that gives us a little bit of leeway too, to know we're not perfect, but we are meeting the goals that we want for our family. Same thing goes for the activities. Like, I would love him to be out at the park every day and it's all these activities, but the realities are we're two busy parents. We cannot do it all. So we listed things that were important for us, and we are going to do that. So I think having support from your partner or any family members are really helpful too.
That's true. I think it's so funny how guys can be so, they can just really not, reasonable and like not as hard on themselves as we can be as women. Because I would say Don Charles the same way. He's like, yeah, whatever. Like I mean, everything in our home, I'm so type A, like we cannot go to bed with the house being dirty. And like, he's like, whatever, like it'll be fine. And same thing with the kids, like, oh, it'll be fine. Like it's okay. So that partner, that balance is very important. If you were able to have that balance in any partnership, whether it's friend, partner that you're romantically involved with, family member, it's important to have that different perspective, because living in your head can be dangerous sometimes. Oh yeah. Which is for me why we started this conversation on this podcast, is because, I wanted to hear what else is going on out there, and living in my head, I've realized can be dangerous if I just don't go to someone else. So I'm glad you brought that up. But also for me, it's also like the priority setting of like, okay, so what is important? Because I don't know if I'm going to get to every single thing that will make me not feel like a bad mom or like I'm doing something wrong. But the priority is, for me, it's the time spent, that quality time. So identifying what to me is important enough to where it may overshadow any thoughts of guilt or second guessing that I have about being a mom. It's like, you know what, we did spend time together. We laughed, we danced, and we had a good time. And I think that that's really what counts. So we're good. Yeah. We had a good day.
Now, we just mentioned our partners and how they are really great support with keeping us on track with certain emotional feelings. But one thing that I notice when I have babies is I get a little bit irritable. I feel like in the first few weeks after having a baby, another emotion that I get is just random anger or irritability. And not in it could be because my husband's the closest to me, but sometimes we may bicker more. I just get really annoyed, and some of it is because we have lack of sleep or whatever. But I think that's another emotion that new parents, mom and dads, can go through. Do you feel like you and Dontrell were more irritable or bickering?
I feel like that's really an everyday thing for me, an everyday struggle. I'm always irritable. Always. I'm just an irritable person by nature. So I don't know. I don't know if there has been a difference. No, there definitely is. Like the lack of sleep is really, really hard on both of us. And oh man, I feel bad sometimes for Dontrell because not only is it the irritability for all the different environmental things, but also just being so particular about what I want for the kids and him just kind of dealing with it.
That particular, I almost said irrational, but maybe it's just particular. I like that better. But honestly, for me, with both of the kids, it has to do with their eating. Like, let him leave a bottle of breast milk out. I will go crazy. Or like try to even talk to me about introducing formula. I'll be like, what are you talking about? So it's like, it seems irrational, but really it's just particular.
It is very particular. I feel like moms can be very particular when it comes to their child. And I'm sure dads will. I can already see it now. Once my kids are older, he's probably going to start being real particular about sports and health regimen. And I'm, so right now it's about bedtime routine and eating and activities. Really, it's everything. But, those things I've also noticed that when things are out of my particular way, that can make me irritable. I also have had to talk to my therapist about that of like, why am I so particular / controlling about things? But that has affected my mood is when the kids are out of whack or when things are not done a certain way.
Yeah. I think control is almost a way of keeping order. Like we talked a little bit about routines when we did our sleep episode. And so sometimes it's just the routines that we know we're trying to implement for our kids and we want it to be a certain way. And I know for my husband, like he likes those routines too, but he probably is a little bit more lax than I am with it. Mm-hmm. And so that's where sometimes we can, get into it. But I always joke that having kids is like the first team project that Bryson and I did together. Like we've been together for 12 years. We've been married for 6 almost. And it almost was like having kids was the first time we actually had to make decisions together that truly mattered. Like something about the mortgage and the bills clearly didn't make that big a difference. But now having kids, we are both really passionate about this topic, this thing. And so that's where, you can get irritable with each other at times. But at the end of the day, it's all love and you figure it out. But I definitely feel like that was a feeling that I had in the postpartum period, just getting through some of those feelings of wanting some particular ways with what I did.
Another feeling I had in the postpartum period was FOMO. And I know that's not an official feeling, but it probably should be categorized somewhere on the wheel because I felt like I was missing out. Like I love being social, going out. Before I had kids, I was just like, traveling, having fun, doing whatever I wanted. And then now I felt like I was just so restricted that my life basically revolved around my children. And so I just felt so like, oh my God, like a boring woman. Like I had I feel like it was partly because I restricted myself because I wanted to maintain this schedule, wanted to kind of tether myself to the kids to keep things on track. And it prevented me from doing more social things that I would have done before. Whereas my husband was going out still, having fun. And even during the pregnancy, like going out. And that actually really irritated me. It made me very emotional as far as like just annoyed and just having little patience. Because I feel like as moms, we tend to just naturally do a lot around the household with the kids. And so then on top of that, feeling like I'm not going out, I'm not able to have an outlet, a fun outlet.
Yeah.
Really got to me a lot. And especially during COVID, there was even less options of what to do.
Oh my gosh.
So,
yeah.
Oh my God. That is one feeling I vividly remember. It's just like, I'm trapped in this house and I feel like it's his fault.
No, that's true. You know, I'm more of a homebody than you, but there are times where I felt like when I wanted to go out, when I want to go out and do things, I have to be on a clock. Like I have to think about the baby. I'm not untethered. I have to think about when am I going to pump next? When is his sleep schedule? Is everything going okay at home? So I felt like I couldn't just be 100% disconnected. And that was different than what it would have been if I didn't have the kids. And so that was a new feeling as well.
Oh my gosh, it really was. And so we kind of touched on this about how you address and manage these feelings that can be very draining, and very draining feelings are just very, the word I'm looking for, it could just be
overwhelming.
A lot of energy. Yeah. A lot of, what'd you say?
Overwhelming.
Yeah. Some overwhelming feelings. Yes. Is there anything you do to self-care or regulate these moods and emotions when they do feel like they might be controlling you or taking over your body?
Yeah, I feel like I made this year all about self-care after I had Russell. I think that as you do more and more as a mom, you are getting the hang of it. And so you're kind of sometimes spreading yourself thin and figuring out how to take care of the kids, how to take care of a household and work and your family. And I realized I need to take care of myself too. So part of self-care for me includes I meditate every morning now, in the shower or like on my way to work. I have a list of things that I enjoy doing, whether it be like binging my favorite show or reading a magazine or like an article of stuff that I like to do. I wish I could say I exercise, but I really don't. But, you know, just things that are for me. That could be doing my own toenails. I always do those myself. But I also tell Bryson I need an hour by myself on Saturdays. Like, just please leave me alone. Y'all don't see me. And I like have just a time to sit and do nothing without the kids present. And for me, that's self-care where I can just do a little of me time, because I think that the more you can put a little bit into yourself, even if it's the smallest, dumbest things like painting your nails, the more that you can get like a fresh air, come up to breathe. And I think that's kind of how I recenter myself when I am feeling guilt or am feeling doubt. What about you?
That's really great. Oh my gosh, that sounds so awesome.
Yeah, tell Dontrell that he doesn't see you 1 hour weekend.
When you do your meditation, is there a certain one that you do?
So I have the Calm app, and they have a daily meditation that comes on every day. So I listen to that. And then I personally struggle with anxiety. So anytime I'm feeling really anxious, I go to one of their anxiety ones and I just listen to it. And so literally I feel like I never have time to just sit down and actually meditate with my eyes closed and my legs crossed. But if I am in the shower, I can just put it on. I can listen to it there. Or when I'm in the car on my car ride, I used to listen to the radio or Pandora. Now I literally just listen to my meditation for 10 minutes.
That's really good. And one thing that I was told is that when you are practicing self-care, that you really it should be focused on, you want to restrict any inputs. This includes listening to podcast, watching TV. Like that actually may not count as self-care because you're still receiving input, which is like the stimulation that you're getting from whatever input that you're absorbing. And so it really should be something like meditating, nails, bath, working out, something where you're having an output? Yeah, an output. So for me, I'm not very good at it right now because I just have a million things going on in my life. And when I have that, I really don't practice self-care as much. The easiest thing that I do is breathing. There's 4-7-8 is a breathing technique. It's supposed to actually help with sleep, but it also helps with relaxation. It's 4 counts in, holding your breath for 7 counts, and then exhaling for 8 counts. And so breathing is just like a tried and true way to de-stress and relax is breathing. And then also I like to, when I go to sleep, I like to listen to like a podcast and input, but I like to listen to stories. So I'll listen to my favorite podcast, LeVar Burton Reed's storytelling, and kind of like go away while I listen to a story. on my way to bed. And also walking. I really think physical movement for me is
Oh,
important.
yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
it's just, even if it's like watering the plants around my house or going on a walk or just being active. It could even be doing laundry. I mean, as
Oh my
crazy as
God,
that.
that's stressful
Well,
for
no,
me.
not like the whole kit and caboodle. Just like getting up and walking upstairs, putting it in, coming downstairs, just actually being moving around. Because my job is one where I could sit literally for 8 hours straight. And so just the act of getting up and doing something, sweeping, just being active, I feel like is bringing more blood to my brain, getting my body moving, shifting gears for me can be a moment of
Yeah.
care.
Another thing that I think has been really important for me is talking with my friends and family about how I feel. You know, I realized that I had a lot of emotions with the delivery of Russell and I was struggling. And now I've gotten to the point that I can talk about it with everybody, like you and mom and my girlfriends, and just saying, like, guys, I think I'm going through a tough time was helpful in itself. And not
Mm-hmm.
everyone feels comfortable doing that or feels like they can do that, but it has actually been really refreshing to me. So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about postpartum depression. And I think maybe I had that with Russell. I'm not sure, but let's talk a little bit about that. You know, and people hear a lot about when you have a baby that you could have this thing called postpartum depression, but basically it's where you can have signs of depression or overwhelming sadness, feelings of being down or just in a negative space that does not go away. Really, anybody can get it, and it can happen at any stage in the postpartum period. You can actually get it when you're still pregnant too. You can just get depression, but it can happen anytime, even up to a year after you've had your baby. And it can be triggered also by certain experiences, or some people can be more prone to it. You know, having any kind of complications in a pregnancy, having a bad prenatal outcome, or even having a history of depression can put you at increased risk of getting depression again. And then sometimes depression in itself doesn't look like what you think it's going to look like. It can include overwhelming sadness, crying all the time, having a hard time concentrating, or having a hard time sleeping. And then sometimes it can even be something that leads to thoughts of suicide or hurting yourself. So definitely, if you ever have any signs of that, or you're feeling so overwhelmed that you think you might harm yourself or that you're not sure what you're going to do, please talk to someone you love, talk to your doctor, talk to your family members. And you can also call the National Suicide Prevention Line, which you can get at 1-800-273-TALK. Now, for me, when I had Russell and he was in the NICU, I always feel like a part of me was left in the hospital with him. But I knew I was going to be sad. But even when he came home, I was still struggling a little bit, feeling like I was disconnected from that experience that he had in the hospital. And I found that I was just overly sad. I would sometimes be crying. I was having a hard time sleeping. And it was rolling into my experience at work. And so luckily, you know, in talking with my family members and my colleagues, I was able to recognize that something was going on and I wasn't myself. And I realized, you know, in talking with people and getting a therapist, those things have been helpful. But I think one of the key things that can be great, including talking to your family members, is knowing that your staff in the hospital, or your nurses, midwives, or OBGYN is there to support you too. One of the things I practice, and many of your OBs may do this too, is something called an Edinburgh Depression Scale. You may get it at your pediatrician too, and you fill it out, and it can look for some cues if you may have signs of depression. So I definitely want those out there to realize that anyone can go through it, and you're not alone, and there's so many different things that can help you with it.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because for me that was not my experience, but it was something that was always looming, like, oh, you know, they said that this can happen, and oh, do I have this? So I think it's so important, like you're saying, just to recognize what it can look like if you do have it, and that there is another side to it, that you can get through it, and that you will get through it if you find the support and you pay attention to your body to recognize that if you do have it.
Yeah.
So for you, can you share like how long, did you recognize like how long you experienced it? And when you knew that you had kind of gotten to the other side?
Well, I knew I was sad when Russell was in the NICU. He was there for 5 weeks, and I just was on take care of baby mode. I wasn't thinking about myself at all. And I was like, oh, it'll all be fine when he gets home. Everything's going to be okay when he gets home. But then I realized something was going on when he got home, and I was still very anxious. I was still having periods of crying or feeling sad. A lot of it was the worry of like, is this baby going to be okay now? And I just assumed that when he came home, he would be just like a normal preterm baby, a normal full-term baby, just that he was small. But we had a couple extra challenges that we were dealing with. And so it wasn't until I got to work and I would have patients who also had preterm babies or patients who also had complications, and it would trigger these strong emotions at me that would make me want to cry at work. And I just never had that happen before, but then I felt like, who can I tell? Like, this is inappropriate. I shouldn't be feeling like this. But one day I spoke with one of my partners who is so lovely, and she was just so supportive and was like, I really am worried about how you're feeling. I think you may be having some depression. And as I started talking through it with her, I realized like, she's right. This is really not who I am. I'm usually really happy and cheerful, and I don't, just cry at work. And so talking with her, I was able to get some resources for a therapist, and that's actually how I got into meditation, and realizing that, I can get through this. And luckily I feel like I'm in a really great place. But one of the first things I did was talk to some of my best friends to tell them how I felt, because it was almost acknowledging that this is not me and I need help. And that was really good for me.
Mm. And didn't Bryson also recognize that you were acting different?
Yeah, Bryson was like, he was just like, I've seen you a lot in the past few years. I've met you since you were in med school, and you've gone through a lot of things and nothing really phases you, but you just seem overly stressed, overly sad. Like, this is really not you. You are, really just worked up by the smallest things, and you just seem like you're not yourself. So he actually pointed that out to me first. And it was maybe a couple weeks before I actually talked to my partner when I realized, yeah, this really isn't me. And so that in itself was good to have somebody recognize that something was going on with me that wasn't really, my normal self. And part of me was actually a little bit embarrassed, to be honest. Like, how could I, an OBGYN who's supposed to be helping all these other patients, have my own problem? I should be strong and be able to help everyone else. But then I realized, what? I'm human too, and we all go through things. And, I just need to listen to my body, listen to those around me, and realize that something's up, but there's a way to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. And so how did you know when you had kind of passed through the depression?
I think that, after a few weeks and talking to a therapist, talking with my family members and friends, I realized everything's going to be okay. Almost having the support of those around me made me realize, like, I have people to lean on, because pregnancy and the postpartum period can be isolating when things don't go according to plan. For example, everyone's all happy and excited when the baby's here, but when something goes not according to plan, like postpartum depression or, a miscarriage or a loss, you feel like people don't know what to say, or you don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. So I didn't want to talk about it at first, but as I began talking about it, I realized, you know what, I've got support. People have got my back. I can really get through this.
That's really, thank you for sharing that, because, that, like I said, I had not experienced that. So even as somebody that's a support person for you, I remember feeling like I did not know what to do. I knew that you were sad because of Russell, but I didn't know how to change your mood. I think that's people are best well-intentioned. Like, I had good intentions, but I honestly didn't know how to support you. I think I was giving advice. I was trying to keep you upbeat and uplifted. And did you find it helpful for family members and friends to like motivate you? I think some people, I think it's a spectrum. Some people will be like, yeah, I liked it. Other people will be like, it wasn't really that helpful. I don't want to hear that,
No, I definitely think it was helpful. I think that, when he was in the hospital, it was rough. So when everyone was like, it's going to be okay, I was like, whatever. Okay, whatever you say. I couldn't see it. But knowing that at the end of the day, you guys were there for me to just let me know it's going to be okay. We're here if you need anything. I think that was key. And I think you were one of the people too who was like, you know, you need to get some sleep. We're worried about you. Like hearing people say that to me over and over again was like, okay, Renita, something is up. So that also helped to put a mirror to what was happening.
And I also tried to give a different perspective because I remember when Russell was born and then he was in the hospital, you like when your child's not coming home, I felt like there wasn't the usual celebration that happens
right
when the baby's there. So I remember coming over and like dropping off some gifts. And I remember telling you like, yeah, you just had a baby. Like, remember that you actually just brought a life into this world. And
that was so sweet. That was so nice. She came over and like dropped off a care package, which was so sweet. Because literally when you come home from the hospital without the baby, you're just there like looking around like, okay, now what? Gosh, this could be a whole topic for another day.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, that's really good information though for people who are going through it, and also for those who are supporting people who are going through it. Just continue to pour into that person, and even sometimes just listening silently. I think I think I can tend to do that, just listening, and that can also be what the person needs, is just a listening ear and not somebody to just pour advice onto them.
Oh yeah.
All right, y'all, it's now time for rapid fire, where we answer questions related to the topic of the day. So first question, are you ready, Renita?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so first question. What is your favorite pick-me-up when you're feeling down?
I really love to just binge a show, just to have a minute to sit down and watch mindless TV. So probably some kind of Real Housewives of something.
Yes, totally agree. I love to binge a good TV show. My favorite pick-me-up, though, would be probably to do something outdoors. If I'm really in a bad mood, maybe going on a walk, or yeah, I would say that, going on a walk. I think sometimes something about change of scenery helps me out.
Yeah, that's true.
What is your favorite comfort food?
I love soups. Anything warm and soothing is my thing.
Ooh. Oh, I love a good soup. I know you like my lasagna soup, and I love making soups too. But my favorite comfort food is popcorn. I love popcorn. I like Smart Food, Garrett's. Really, it's just those two. That's my favorite comfort food. So thinking now about your spouse, what is one word that Bryson would use to describe your most common postpartum mood?
Oh my goodness. Can I squeeze this into one word? He would probably say chaotic. Just to mean like all over the place. I mean, I don't know. I think that's the word.
That's funny. Sorry. I would say the word that describes me is irritable. And I don't even think that's only postpartum, but definitely irritable. I have a very short patience postpartum. What is something that your children do that may trigger you?
Well, I hate the word trigger. I mean, we all love our children, and they do things that annoy me. So I may not say trigger, but some annoying things that I can think about in the infant period is just like crying and you can't figure out what it is. So that annoying, just cry, you've done everything and you can't wrap your head around what the problem is.
Yes.
It's a frustration, like it's something I can't control.
Yeah. Well, trigger, that word can also be very triggering. So I apologize to any listeners who also are bothered by that word. However, something that can be triggering to me with my child, especially postpartum, is when in the middle of the night, just restless crying. That really can take me to a bad place of like, oh my God, I can't figure this out. So I'd say I'm highly triggered after I've really, like you said, Renita, gone through the list of things. You think you've done it all. You've tried new things, techniques. It's the middle of the night primarily, and you just want to sleep. So is there something that you do to combat that emotional response that you get when you're triggered by that feeling?
Well, I think it's really natural that we all go through moments of just frustration when you're triggered or annoyed. But for me, it's like tag team with my husband. So like tag, you're at Bryson, get in there. I am emotionally defeated. You can go in and come in with a fresh set of eyes of how to handle it. So I think that's what we try to do to handle those moments. Thank goodness to have a partner. I mean, I honestly want to shout out all the single moms out there because I'm always like, gosh, how do they do it? So shout out to all of you.
Right. I totally agree because it's hard with two. I can only imagine how harder it is with one. So yeah, separating yourself that's a great coping technique. For me, when I'm triggered in that way, I try to take some deep breaths and be a little bit more present. So that means in the middle of the night, rocking with him, holding him, just snuggling up and trying to calm my body down and be present in that moment so that I can not just say, here, you take him to my husband.
Yeah. So like you be calm while the baby's not calm, so to speak.
Yes. Very hard to do.
That's good.
What is now kind of switching gears? What is something that your child does that makes you laugh? So when you're maybe the opposite of that triggered feeling, what is something that does make you very joyful and happy by your infant?
My goodness. I love the stage when they start to mimic you. Russell's in that stage now. So when you make faces or make noises and they do it back to you, it's like baby talking back and forth. I love that. It just makes me laugh all day.
Oh, that is so sweet. That's cute. So something that makes me laugh, laughter. Let's see. I love when they laugh. So when a baby laughs, that really just makes me laugh because it's an infectious type of thing. It's like, oh my God, finally, when they're starting to laugh and smile, it just makes you laugh and smile because you've been waiting to experience that. And finally it's there. And it's like, oh my God, his little voice, you're starting to hear their voice. You start to wonder, what are they going to sound like when they start talking? I love that. What is one way that you overcome anxiety? We talked about that in this episode about anxiety being one of the feelings that we have postpartum. So what is something that you do to overcome that anxiety?
Now, I mentioned earlier that I do some meditation, which I really like, but I think at its core, really it's breathing. So like slow in and out breathing that I'll try to do. Or if I have the opportunity, I put on a song that puts me in a good mood. So I love Lauryn Hill or Solange. Like those are the two that I'll go to. Or Adele. Those are the three that I'll go to in an anxious mood. I'll put one of those three on.
That's a good technique. Music really does change your whole entire mood. For me, when I'm experiencing anxiety, it's typically the same type of anxiety around like fearing that something will happen bad or the kid will get hurt. So I really have to just switch my thoughts and do some positive self-talk and talking myself down. I'm like, okay, everything's okay. Nothing's happening. The kids are fine. So it's all about me doing that, changing my inner monologue to being more positive.
Good.
Who is the person you talk to when you need a hug?
You probably be like, oh, I already know, but it's mom. So mom, like a million times a day, but she's probably the number one on the list because I just feel like she like knows me in and out.
Aw, I hope my kids say that about me. For me, it's definitely my husband because he knows exactly what to say. He really is great about that. I feel like he knows me in and out too. And he knows how to make me feel better.
Yes, that's good. Bryson knows me too, but something about mom, I don't know. She knows my quirkiness. She knows, She understands my chaoticness.
So we talked earlier also about having a therapist. How did you find yours?
Honestly, I have a list that I give out to patients to see all the time. And so I'm aware of lots of therapists out there. But when it came to finding my own, it was more like word of mouth. So that was kind of it. I just gave somebody a try and then it worked out for me based on a reference that I had.
Cool. For me, I went to this website called Therapy for Black Girls. I think that's it. It's either Black or Brown girls. It is
Black girls.
So you can search by zip code. I went there, searched, interviewed a couple folks, and found the one for me. Last one, name your mom guilty pleasure.
Ooh. Well, okay, I know what mine is. I don't know if this is a mom guilty pleasure, but I mentioned earlier that I have like this 1 hour a day on Saturdays that I like to be left alone and no one see me, no one talk to me. That's kind of my guilty pleasure. It's kind of like my little time for myself, and it allows me to have wellness for me, even though I know I have other responsibilities. And so everyone in the house respects it. So that's my little guilty pleasure for me to just take that hour and do whatever I want.
You should not feel guilty about that. I feel like that is self-care that is much needed. So that's definitely not a guilty pleasure. For me, my guilty pleasure is, oh my gosh. Maybe it's popcorn. Indulging in food a little too much, probably overdoing it with some treats, a little maybe too much to drink, but I think it would be like indulging in things would be my guilty pleasure.
We all need a little guilty pleasure.
Yes.
Now, we've talked about so many different ranges of emotions that you can have in the postpartum period. But one thing I do want to point out is that as you prepare to have your baby, I think it's important to think about how to prepare for you as a mom when the baby actually arrives. We think about preparing the nursery and buying the clothes and packing your hospital bag. But I think it's also important to think about care measures you're going to take for yourself when the baby is here. If you're somebody who, is used to exercising, that's your stress relief, and then you can't exercise for 6 weeks, that can lead to some extra stress for you or, put you at risk for having a hard time in handling some of the tough things that come along with early postpartum period. So having that as part of your plan is actually really important, including those conversations with those who live with you and who's going to be supporting you too. If you know that you're irritable when it's you don't get any sleep, what are some things that you can put in place so it makes it easier for you to manage throughout your day? So that's my little tip that I'd give for people who are about to have a baby. Right. If you're going to have a new addition, if you're going to have twins and it's like, how are we going to manage this or whatever it is, start thinking about it in the, prenatal period.
That's a good point. I mean, we plan for that. We plan for that as ways to make our life easier so that we could avoid some of those high intensity emotions. We decided we're only eating off of plasticware. We're not going to use dishes so that we don't get stressed out trying to worry about doing dishes. We made a plan to, for the sleep deprivation, once a week, Dontrell and I would each have a night where we slept uninterrupted. So the other person was on duty full time.
Ooh, that's really smart.
Yeah, the other parent got to sleep in the room by themselves, uninterrupted, while the other one was on full duty. So that way you at least get one full night of sleep. You can avoid some of the, the extra stress that comes along with not getting enough sleep. And the third thing that we did when I had Dallas, the working out piece, I wanted to continue working out. So literally, Dontrell would meet me at the hot yoga studio with the baby when he got off work. And I would pass the baby off to him in the parking lot. And then I'd go in to work out. And this was at 7 p.m. Because even though it was late and not a part of the regular schedule, I needed that workout. That actually kept me so sane and happy. It just made me so happy to be able to have that time for myself with Dallas that we made it work. I would drive across town with the baby in the cold just so that I can get that 90-minute workout in. And so those were my, our non-negotiables for our children at those times. So I think that's great advice of thinking preemptively, what can you do to eliminate some of the stressors and high emotions that you would have if you weren't to think through some of those items before it happens.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Not doing so well now, but,
it's a work in progress. Give yourself some grace.
Well, thank you for listening, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode.
All right. Take care. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss a thing, and leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram at The Cradle and All, or email us at thecradleandall@gmail.com.